Hey everybody, this is Can't Stop the Unc with lesson 2, and we're going to go over escape characters, loops, and if statements. Alright, so the first thing I did was make the font size bigger, so I think it's a little easier to see when watching the video. Anyways, so let's move on to escape characters. So right here, I put some most common used characters that you can use to escape. So like if you want to tab like certain text, for example, when you do a print line statement, you can use \T and that will tab your, instead of actually having to physically tab the string, you can just use this. There are other things like we've seen the new line characters, and yeah, there's just a bunch of them over here. You can just go check them out, but these are pretty commonly used. The ones I use the most is probably the new line character and probably like the double quotes and occasionally the tab. And they're pretty straightforward, so we're going to go over the first example. So I have a string which has my name on it. Here's the first print line statement using printf. So when we print this, it's not going to have a new line character. So what happens is when this line prints, this printf statement right here will also be on the same line. So when you run it, right click, run as Java application, you'll see that this is the first on line 35. This is what it prints out. And on line 36, see, it prints it on the same line because there's a new line character. But you can see here at the end of line 36, I do have a escape character, which is \n, and this prints a new line. And therefore, on line 37, when it prints out, it's no longer going to be on the same line, but it's going to be on the new line, and that's what the new line character does. And then you can check the other ones out, like I can escape a \. So if you use \, obviously you're escaping, so you can print the second \, which is this one right here, this second \. So when you see it print, it doesn't print two \, it only prints one because the first \ is read in as Java as an escape character, so then the second one prints out as normal, and then you can see the end instead of it being a new line character like here. And then the last example I'm just going to go over real quickly is the tab. So you can see on line 46 we have \T, which means this string right here should be tabbed over when it prints out, and you can see it is when it prints out. So this is the tab, and that's what \T does. So the next thing I want to go over are what keywords are in Java. So keywords are things that you can't use as variable names because they're already predetermined, and they have a predetermined use in Java. So for example, I can't just declare, so when I want to declare an int, I can't use the variable name int because that's a keyword and it already means something else. So anything, and Java has a ton of keywords like int, all the prototypes, while, if, string. So anything like that, like those are predetermined words that are already used in Java, so they can't be variable names. And that's all what keywords are. And now we're going to go over loops. So there's two types of loops that I use the most commonly. There are other ones like do while loops, but I've pretty much never used them. So we're going to go over two really common ones. So the first one we're going to go over is a while loop. And this is how you would use or declare a while loop. So what you do is this syntax right here. You say while, and you have to have these parentheses, matching parentheses, beginning and end statements. And then you have, this is the condition inside of it. So as you can see, I've declared an int up here, which is equal to 0. I have some number, I set it to 100. And then, so as long as this I, which is equal to 0, is less than or equal to 100, we're going to continue through this loop. And we're just going to do whatever is inside the code. And whatever's inside the code is marked by the bracket. So it has a big matching bracket as to start it like this, and a closed bracket to end it. And the while loops code is all inside what's inside between the brackets. So I have the condition, as long as this I equals 0 is less than some number, all we do is add I to itself. So basically this is equal to, this statement right here is equal to this while result equals while result plus I. So these two statements are equivalent. This plus equals is just a shortcut to do while result plus I. So basically what's happening is every time we loop through this, we add while result plus I and then set while result back to that value when you add them together, and we do this 100 times. So basically this is equivalent to adding 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus 6 all the way to plus 100, and that's basically what we're doing in this while loop. And while result is what contains the result, so it should be 50-50, and you can see right here that it does print out 50-50. And then so now we're going to move on to the second type of loop, which is a for loop. And we're doing the exact same thing here with the for loop. We're going to try to add 1 2 3 4 5 all the way through 100, and you can see I have this for result which holds the result, which is what we're going to print out, which is eventually going to be 50-50. And then so the important thing here is to focus on the syntax. So notice that for a while loop I had to declare like an int variable so that I could set a condition, like 2 int variables so that I can set up the condition. But in a for loop you can just declare declare an integer inside the condition and set it up this way. So this is how you would read it. You declare an int variable j equals 0, and as long as j is less than or equal to some number, and remember some number is 100, you add j++, which is what we did here, which is incrementing the variable. Basically anytime you do plus plus, it just increments the variable by 1. So in the first time j equals 0, and the second time it goes through, j equals 1, because we go through j++. Same thing happens in the while loop when we have the I. When I was equal to 0, the first time it goes through the loop, it goes to I++. So it goes I equals 1, then I equals 2. And that's how we end this conditional statement. Because when I equals 101, this statement is no longer executed, and we move on to the next line. And that's how this is going to work. So the same thing happens here for the for loop. We have some variable equal to j, some variable j equal to 0, and as long as it's less than 100, we keep incrementing j. And what we do is the same addition where we add 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4. And then at the end of the loop, once j is greater than 100, this condition is no longer true, so we exit out of this, and then we can move on to the next line. So the last thing to go over with loops is when do you use which type of loop? So the way you know which type of loop to use is you use a for loop when you know exactly how many number of iterations you need. So we know we have to do this. If we want to add 1 2 3 4 5 to 100, we know we have to loop through this 101 times, because we have to include 0 to 100. So for this exact problem that we just described, you want to use a for loop. You would never use a while loop to do this, because you know how many loops you need to do, which is 101 in this case. So obviously while loops then are used when you don't know the number of times you need to iterate through the loop. So that would be like trying to find, maybe the greatest common divisor between two numbers. So if you have two random numbers and they're passing randomly, you don't know how many times you have to go through a loop. So that would be a time when you use a while loop. And that's the reason why you have two different types of loops. One, you use when you know how many iterations you need, and the second when you don't know how many iterations you need. And the last thing we're going to go over are if statements. So if statements, this is how you declare an if statement. Obviously use the keyword if, and then you have this conditional that you have to meet. So right here in our example, we have a int which is generated. We have a random number that's generated between 0 and 100. So this is what this code is. It just generates an integer between 0 and 100. And then we set it to some variable called random. And the if statement's goes as follows. If random is greater than 50, then we print this. If not, we print this statement. And just note that for all these, for loops, for if statement, any kind of statement that has this conditional thing, this piece of code right here is the same as putting a bracket around it. So if you have only one line of code like this, this is a shortcut to save space. you can just print it out like this. But if you have a multi-line statement, like you want to print out two different things like this, then you need to put brackets around it so you can do multiple lines. So hi. So well, you can't. If this happens, then what happens is what's really happening is you're doing this. And so it prints this out, and this will always print, and then you break the conditional. So if you want to do multi-line code within a conditional if statement, you have to put brackets around it. But if you only have one line of code, this is just a shortcut. And this is, so if statements are pretty straightforward, and you can just see how it works. But you can also chain conditions. So not everything has to be just an if-else statement. You can just have, you can also have else-ifs. So if you have like multiple, conditions you want to have, not just two, then what you do is if random is less than 33, you print this out. If random, then you use else if, and then it's basically another if statement, and you put a different conditional. Random is less than 66, then you print out strawberry. If it's neither less than 33 or 66, then you print out vanilla. And this is basically how you use if-else statements. So if you want to test out the results of different results of the if statement, just hit right click, run as Java application, and then you can see that it prints out different things every time, or most of the time it will, because we're generating random numbers. And so just let's run it one more time. I see darkness, chocolate. Let's run it until we get something different. So I see light and strawberry. And that's how if statements work. So you can see based on the number that's been generated, whenever it meets one of these conditions, it prints this out. If it meets, and then you go through more conditions, and then if it meets one of them, it prints whatever statement it meets. So to summarize, remember what escape characters are. They're pretty straightforward. You use a backslash, and they're specific designated characters that do certain things, and it's explained here. Remember what keywords are. They're names that you can't use because they already have a predetermined meaning in Java. Remember when you use a while loop, for loop, you use a for loop when you know how many iterations you need. You use a while loop when you don't know how many iterations you need. And remember the subtle syntax. And when you use a while loop, keep this in mind. Always remember to increment it. If I didn't have this increment statement right here, I++, this loop would just run forever because I would never be incremented, and I will always be less than 100 since I equals 0. So you need to have this increment so that I adds to itself so that it reaches its condition. If it never reaches its condition, you're just going to be in this while loop forever, and you'll never make it past line 66. Like the rest of this code will not run if you do not have this statement. And remember, for for loop, the syntax goes as follows. Declare some integer variable j, set it equal to 0 or whatever integer, and you have some condition. And as long as this condition is met, you execute the code in between these brackets, and you keep executing the code until this condition is broken, and you increment your integer variable j. And lastly, when you do if statements, you use the if keyword, have some condition in it, and this only runs once. This is not like a loop where it runs over and over. An if statement just runs once. If it meets it, it prints the code in between the brackets. If it's a multi-line, if it's a multi-line code, but since we have single line code, it doesn't matter. And if it doesn't meet this condition, you have an else statement that just does this, and it prints something else or does some other code. And if you need to chain different conditions, like more than 2 conditions, then you can use if-else statements to do it. And also don't forget to check out the project that I made for this lesson 2. There's actually 2 of them, so go check out that video, and which will go over the project and explain what you need to do. So next time we're going to go over arrays and how to fill arrays and how to manipulate arrays and how to manipulate strings using arrays. And that's what we'll go over in the next video. So I'll see you then.